$1 deal with the Texans. 51.8 of that is guaranteed. That's the most guaranteed money for any defensive player currently under contract. Next in line is Patrick Peterson. Watt was supposed to make a little under $2 million this season, which means before this new deal, 245 defensive players were going to make more money than him. So by the metrics, we're talking about disrupted dropbacks. J.J. Watt has been the most impactful player, defensive player in the NFL since his rookie season. So we asked the question, is he the most valuable defensive player in the league? So says the contract, one Mark. So can you tell me, sir, is he?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at J.J. Watt, you look at his production. 2012, 20.5 sacks. Last year, 10.5 sacks. Numbers were down a little bit, but he was double-teamed all the time. You look at his durability. He's been on the field.
Yeah.
You look at his work ethic. I don't know if there's a work ethic in the NFL like J.J. Watt's. Incredible. I mean, he is a once-in-a-generation defensive lineman. And 25 years old. The best thing I like about J.J. Watt is the person. You hear all the right things. I read this quote a couple days ago, and I want to read it to you because it just jumped out at me. And talking about, J.J. Watt, should you, what about a holdout? Would you ever consider it? This is what he said. I wouldn't want to hold out because that would cause me to miss time with my teammates, and right now, I want to practice. You don't hear that. I want to be out here with these young guys. I want to teach them the things I know. I want to better myself. I want to be a Houston Texan. I want to play football. I want to be the best I can because I can't do that by sitting on the couch. Skip, that just jumped out at me. I mean, you're looking at a player, the person, a guy that's only 25 years old that has his best football, I believe, ahead of him. I mean, when you think of the Houston Texans, there's not a running back or a quarterback that comes to your mind right away. It's J.J. Watt. And for that reason, well-deserved contract. He's earned this contract, and I believe his best football is ahead of him.
I can't disagree with a single point you made, and he is worth every penny they just paid him. But our question was, is he the most valuable on the football field? Again, would I have locked him up for that? Yes, I would have. But can I make the case that he scares defensive coordinators more than a few other guys? Now, here's my issue, and you're going to be able to respect this because you're a little older, so you know what I'm talking about. Some of our young people who watch the show have no idea what I'm talking about. But there was this guy named Lawrence Taylor once upon a time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He dominated football games the way no defensive player I ever watched dominated, unless you want to talk about Deion as a cornerback, because he would just take half the field away. But it wasn't readily apparent to the naked eye the way Lawrence Taylor wreaked havoc play after play, mostly as a stand-up pass rusher, and you just couldn't block the guy. He would disrupt, he would discombobulate, he would destroy you psychologically. And I don't see one of those guys playing right now of that caliber. Then we had Reggie White in the interior as a pretty much of an unblockable force who could move around, play end or tackle. We had the various Mean Joe Greens, and then at linebacker Dick Butkus, Jack Lambert. Obviously Ray Lewis is just retired a year ago. And then we had a Bruce Smith. And quick story, as I was covering the Dallas Cowboys in their breakthrough Super Bowl in the 90s when they beat Buffalo in a rout, the night before I saw North Turner and sat down, actually had dinner with him the night before that Super Bowl, and he was the coordinator for that young Cowboy team. And he said, look, we will have two people on every play tomorrow. And if we can't block him, we will lose this game, because they were afraid they couldn't block Bruce Smith. Well, is there anybody playing right now like Bruce Smith? And by the way, they were able to contain Bruce Smith, and it was a complete wipeout because the rest of the defense wasn't very good. Well, now I'm back to J.J. Watt. His team went 2-14 last year. How do you reconcile 2-14 with most valuable defensive player? Because I'm too old school where I want to see that guy take over games and actually like tilt the playing field in favor of the Houston Texans, and I don't see that enough. I get what you're saying. All those things are exactly right, except is he a Lawrence Taylor type? I think you'd have to say no, right?
Well, I would say he's a Lawrence Taylor type on a bad football team.
Okay.
And their issues last year were their quarterback. They were their quarterback. But I do know this, as a quarterback, if I'm going into a game and J.J. Watt's there, I have one concern. Who's going to take care of him? I know he's a defensive lineman, but still, J.J. Watt has the ability to wreck a game. He only got 10.5 sacks last year, and the reason is because offenses went in with a game plan. Hey, we're going to put 2 guys on him. 2 guys on him. The year before, 20.5 sacks. You know, he was still a secret. You know, he was still, you know, young player. Yeah. But listen, if they can get that offense going, he becomes that guy. He's that much of a player. He's just a very good football player right now on a very bad football team. But given an offense that will score some points, you know, he is that guy that could wreck an offense.
I look at Robert Mathis's stats last year, playing at age 33. You can argue that he was getting some help because he's now suspended for the first 4 games. But be that as it may, he had 19.5 sacks to 10.5 for J.J. He had 20.5 disrupted dropbacks to 16.5 for J.J. So Robert Mathis was wreaking some havoc last year as a very pure pass-rushing defensive end. Does he tackle ball carriers quite the way that J.J.? Because J.J. can do both. He can be stout against the run, and he can disrupt the passing game, a lot of times just by getting up in the air, right?
If you have an offense, your offense is scoring points, Skip, okay? If your offense is scoring points, the other team has to score points without a doubt, which many times, if you're leading, that other team, they have to throw the ball. Andrew Luck scored a lot of points, and that offense scored a lot of points, which forced the opposing offenses to have to throw, to have to pass, to have to move the ball down the field in chunks, which gave Quinn tons of opportunities because they were throwing the ball. That equals sacks.
Robert Mathis,
Robert Mathis, excuse me. Robert Mathis, that equals sacks. And so it all works together, offense and defense. The best thing J.J. Watt could have right now is an offense, and it remains to be seen if they have just
and
that.
I'm glad you brought up Robert Quinn. That's the other guy that when I watch him on television, I say he is virtually unblockable. Now, maybe he's been kind of a secret so far. Maybe this is the year he emerges, but they've lost their quarterback, so that could be a problem. But again, to my eye, he's at least as disruptive as J.J. Watt is. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, very disruptive.
Yeah. So is he unblockable? It's close. So right now, if you could have Robert Quinn or J.J. Watt, which way would you go?
I'm going J.J. Watt.
Just because of the intangibles?
The intangibles, the person, the player, the durability, the production, the big picture, the complete player. J.J. Watt, 25, he's got 8, 9 good years of football left in him.
Okay, last one I'm going to throw at you. This is somebody this would be a tough call. If you said you can have this guy for the next 5 years or J.J. Watt, Earl Thomas.
Okay.
And I know he's not a pass rusher, but he is the lifeblood of Seattle's defense. No disrespect to Richard Sherman or any of the other players, or to Cam Cameron for that matter. I'm Cam Chancellor, Lawrence Cam Cameron. But the point is, with Earl Thomas, he is everywhere with extremely high motor. He's attacking the run as well as attacking people who even think about catching a pass over the middle. And now they say he's going to return punts, which would be just a little gravy on top. But still, I would be hard-pressed. If I had a choice between Earl Thomas as my defensive leader and J.J., I would think hard about Earl Thomas.
I would think hard about Earl Thomas, too, but consider who else is around Earl Thomas. He's fortunate to have a defensive line. Other secondary players, linebackers, again, getting back to the complete package, he benefits from the guys around him. J.J. has nothing.
All right.
Or very little, I should say. Very little.
All right, so the question is he the most valuable defensive player in the league? The contract, $51.8 million, would suggest so. You heard the gentleman weigh in on J.J. Watt. We want to know what you think at home. That means you have to go to Twitter and